Everyone, the hate speech bill that's much opposed in Ireland, the dystopian law that the government are trying to push through. A number of weeks ago they said part of the elements of this bill would be scrapped for a period of time, obviously until the next election, and then they're going to ram this hate speech legislation through. But part of this legislation is being pushed through and guillotined through the Seanad today. This is very important to note because this bill passed by all without any major interventions by the political classes. Obviously the government proposes legislation, but the opposition were fully behind this also as well. And only when it became to the Seanad that a number of amendments were tabled and discussed around the attack on freedom of speech, which is a sacrosanct in any functioning democracy. But we all know where the drive towards authoritarianism and totalitarianism is on the way, with the power grabs that are being pulled relentlessly by the Irish political establishment, pull more control over ordinary people, much the same as people's views to speak their mind. It's critically important to have dissent, critique, criticisms of policies of all sides of the Oireachtas and all sides of society also as well. But this Criminal Justice, Incitement to Violence and Hatred and Hate Offences Act is being pushed forward, or bill being pushed forward, and they haven't announced amendments other than giving the hate speech piece dropping and focus on the hate crime. But there are elements of this hate crime as well which are very important to note, because obviously I had serious concerns for this because there's no definition of hatred. You talk about ill-defined definition, there's no definition of hatred. So if people are legislating, such as the TDs and senators are legislating for this, surely they should be able to define these words before it becomes into practice and comes into law, and then it's enforced then by the authorities of the state. That's obviously judiciary, and we see the Gardaí as well. Now it is important because there's no definition, as I said, of hatred, which is left to the Gardaí. So a non-criminal incident which is received by any person has to be motivated by hostility or prejudice. So again, a lot of it is up to the Gardaí to decide, and it's particularly important because it comes into gender. And this has been a huge point of discussion in Ireland, but of course the media won't talk about it because the media are completely complicit. There's no variety of media in Irish society. We know that the mainstream media are completely captured by the political establishment and are doing the bidding of them all the time, so they won't even talk about this on mainstream media in Ireland today. And it is important because there's no definition of gender, or their definition is a wider definition of gender, which whatever that means. This was pushed forward for Simon Harris when he was Minister for Justice, when Helen McEntee was off on maternity leave. And basically this states that the gender of a person, or the gender which a person expresses as a person's preferred gender, or with which the person identifies and includes transgender and a gender other than those of male or female. Now, try and make head nor tail of that. So essentially this is just farcical and opens the door to anything to be pushed forward. And again, if they're going to try and push this forward, this will have serious ramifications, because if people have views on men or women, a man can be a man, a man can be a woman, or if people have those views, that is seen as being directed as hate, dependent on the so-called protected characteristics of the person, whatever they identify at themselves. So they could change day to day, you could change hour to hour, you could change minute to minute, not based on biology but based on their own point of view. And that has issues, ramifications obviously with single-sex bathrooms and all those other issues in society as well. We've seen most recently Enoch Burke, for instance, being imprisoned for well over 400 days at this stage in the context of his points of view as well, which should be upheld in society as well. But it's important to have a proper conversation around this rather than actually going down and criminalising people and targeting people because of their beliefs. Now this is a dangerous slide into totalitarianism in Irish society, and a lot of people are blissfully ignorant and unaware of what's going on because they'll be transfixed with a lot of the other stuff going on, the shenanigans in Sinn Féin, a lot of other stuff going on that's been pushed by the mainstream media, and they won't talk about these finer details of this, which have huge ramifications for the freedom of expression. And leaving hands or power in the hands of a Gardaí without the whole issues being defined opens the door to anything to happen. It's just unthinkable really that what could happen. But it shows you how far-fetched everything has gone in Irish society, and in particular the opposition, who haven't been in opposition, who have been just standing full square behind the political governments time and time again, through the hate speech legislation, through many more of their draconian laws trying to attack the freedom of expression of people. And it is important because they've been captured to a massive extent with the whole identity politics rather than dealing with the class politics and the class nature of the system, which is really apparent in our society, the working class nature of what happens in terms of the oppression and what's going on in society currently in terms of the inequalities, the poverty, the wealth being funneled to the top of society as well. So they have been pushed down this road of identity politics where one group claims they're more oppressed than another group. For me, crime is wrong in any event and anybody, so it basically gives enhanced protections to certain characteristics of people depending on their own view of their characteristic rather than all of society, which is what should be protected against any offences that are pushed against ordinary people. And again, this, if it's legislated for, it will be pushed forward through the Equal Status Act, which opens up more can of worms again, and more divisions in society again, a two-tier justice system in Irish society again, based on nonsense. But a lot of the stuff is complete and utter nonsense, because in a society, I'm very much of the motion and the idea for people to live and let live, but it's very important to note when it becomes legislation and it has impacts on the rights of many others in society, then intervention should be made. And as well, when it goes into the education system as well. We've seen that recently with the SPHE scandal erupt in our society as well, which have huge ramifications. Not to mention supports of people, and currently there is a case in England, I think, with the NHS around these issues as well, which are very important, which is a landmark ruling, which has been silenced by the media, but it isn't very important to note. But it is important to have proper discussions, proper debates, freedom of expression, where people can express their points of view and not be silenced. And that's what the Irish political establishment are trying to do now currently with the Commission I'm on as well, trying to target so-called misinformation, disinformation, rather than actually having frank and open debates, and then people can make their own mind when all the facts are presented in front of them. And that's what society should be, where people's points of views are respected and listened to, and not being silenced, smeared or criminalised for having a point of view. So thanks for all supporting my videos, and keep speaking out for free speech, which is vitally important, and freedom of expression. So thanks for the support, and Slán. Take care. Bye bye.